How to build a functioning trade network when digital money is dead. ATMs are coffins full of useless paper, and your neighbors are 3 missed meals away from becoming raiders. Right now, look around you. Your phone says you've got money. Your bank app shows that comforting balance. Your credit cards are sitting in your wallet like little plastic promises that society will honor its debts. You feel secure because numbers on a screen tell you you're secure. Welcome to the most dangerous delusion of the 21st century. But here's the kicker. You think this is about money? Wrong. This is about the 72 hours between system maintenance and your neighbor trying to trade their daughter's antibiotics for your canned soup. This is about the fact that your entire civilization runs on faith, not gold, not assets, not anything real, just collective belief that when you swipe that card, magic happens. And when that belief dies, it dies fast, catastrophically fast. Mad Max in a Target parking lot? Fast. The average American has $67 in actual cash. The average bank has about 3% of deposits in physical currency. The entire global financial system is a beautiful, elaborate Ponzi scheme built on the assumption that we'll never all ask for our money at the same time. Guess what happens when we do? You're about to learn the mistakes that separate survivors from statistics in the first week of financial collapse. Not the obvious ones. Everyone knows to stock up on supplies. I'm talking about the psychological traps, the tactical errors, and the brutal social dynamics that turn normal neighborhoods into tribal warfare zones faster than you can say cryptocurrency. Strap in. This is going to get ugly, because when the numbers stop meaning anything, people show you who they really are, and they will come. Hour 6. The banks are calling it a technical difficulty. The news anchors are using phrases like minor disruption and expected to be resolved shortly. Your bank's app has that friendly, "we're working on it" message with a little animated wrench icon. How cute, how catastrophically wrong. And there you are, refreshing your banking app for the 47th time, watching that little loading circle spin like it's going to suddenly cough up your life savings. You're annoyed, sure, but not worried. You've got 2 days of groceries at home, maybe 3. You'll just wait this out like you waited out that time Facebook went down. Congratulations, you just activated the normalcy bias that's killed more people in disasters than every natural catastrophe combined. The psychology of collective delusion. Here's what your brain is doing right now and why it's going to get you hurt. Normalcy bias is your mind's defense mechanism against paradigm shifts it can't process. When a Boeing 747 is on fire, passengers sit in their seats waiting for instructions instead of stampeding to exits. When Hurricane Katrina's levees broke, people stayed in their homes because surely someone would come. Your brain literally cannot accept that the fundamental rules have changed until it's way too late to adapt. The science is brutal. Studies from the National Institute of Standards and Technology show that in disaster scenarios, 75% of people experience behavioral inaction for 30 seconds to several minutes. They freeze while their brains try to reconcile new reality with established patterns. But here's the really fun part. In financial collapse scenarios, that delay compounds exponentially. By hour 12, when you finally accept this is real, the grocery stores are already picked clean. By hour 24, the gas stations are dry. By hour 48, your neighbors have formed supply hoarding coalitions and you're on the outside looking in. The timeline of collapse follows predictable mathematics. Financial panic spread according to network theory at a rate proportional to communication speed. In 1929, the bank runs took weeks to cascade because news traveled by radio and newspaper. In 2008, Bear Stearns collapsed in 96 hours because of email and cable news. Today, with Twitter, TikTok, and instant messaging, you've got maybe 6 to 8 hours before the collective realization hits critical mass and the panic becomes self-fulfilling prophecy. The fix, Hour Zero protocols. The instant you see banking system disruption trending on social media or hear about technical difficulties affecting multiple banks simultaneously, you trigger your emergency response. Not tomorrow, not let me see what happens. Right then, because the only people who survive paradigm shifts are the ones who accept the new reality before the crowd does. First action, cash extraction. You hit every ATM within a 3-mile radius immediately. Not your bank, every bank. Most people will rush to their own bank's ATMs first, creating instant queues. You're hitting the competition's machines while they're still functional. Maximum withdrawal limits, hit them all. You're pulling $300 from Chase, $400 from Bank of America, $300 from Wells Fargo, $500 from that random credit union. Your goal is $2,000 in physical currency within the first 2 hours. Why $2,000? Because that's approximately what you'll need for 30 days of basic survival if every store moves to cash-only or barter systems. Second layer, strategic shopping. Before the crowds realize what's happening, you're making one calculated supply run, not a panic buy, not cleaning out the store like an apocalypse cosplayer. You're buying specific items that serve multiple functions: rice, beans, pasta, calorie-dense, long shelf life, water purification tablets, first aid supplies, batteries, and, here's the key, trade goods: cigarettes, alcohol, coffee, sugar. You don't smoke, doesn't matter. In 72 hours, nicotine-addicted Karen from 3 houses down will trade you her generator for a carton of Marlboros. Third backup, information warfare. You tell absolutely no one what you're doing. Not your best friend, not your parents, not your spouse. Wait, scratch that. Tell your spouse, but make them swear operational silence. The moment your neighbors know you've got supplies, you've painted a target on your house. Remember that scene in The Walking Dead where Carol hides the guns in the false panel? That wasn't paranoia, that was tactical intelligence. Your supplies get divided, visible decoys, half-empty pantry that looks like you're struggling too, and hidden reserves, false walls, buried caches, that space behind the water heater nobody checks. Pro tip, create scarcity theatre. When neighbors ask if you've got extra food, you show them your deliberately sparse pantry and commiserate about how you're struggling too. I know, right? I've only got like 4 cans of soup left. Meanwhile, you've got 60 pounds of rice in 5-gallon buckets buried in your backyard marked paint supplies and 20 gallons of water in your attic. Deception isn't immoral when the alternative is becoming the neighborhood charity case who gets robbed on day 9. Pop culture parallel. Remember that scene in Contagion where Matt Damon's character realizes the CDC is lying about the timeline? He doesn't wait for official confirmation. He doesn't see how things develop. He immediately pulls his daughter out of school and locks down. That's hour 0 protocol. He recognized that official sources optimize for preventing panic, not for individual survival. They will lie to you to maintain order until the exact moment order becomes impossible to maintain. By then, you're stuck in the crush. Or look at the 2021 Texas power grid failure. For 72 hours before the collapse, officials were saying everything was fine. People believed them. Then suddenly, millions without power in sub-freezing temperatures. The people who survived with dignity were the ones who ignored the official narrative at hour 1 and filled bathtubs with water, bought camp stoves, and charged every device they owned. The people who trusted the authorities, boiling snow on candles and rationing frozen food that was going to spoil anyway. The brutal truth, in the first 6 hours of banking collapse, you have a narrow window of operational advantage over the crowd. That window closes permanently once the evening news picks up the story and shows footage of lines at ATMs. After that, you're competing with millions of people who all just got the same memo simultaneously. The mathematics of this are unforgiving. If 100,000 people in your city all try to withdraw cash from 500 ATMs simultaneously, and each machine holds $150,000 in available currency, you're looking at $75 million in physical money serving a population that wants access to billions in digital numbers. First come, first served. Last come, first to starve. Your normalcy bias is not your friend. It's the comfortable lie your brain tells you to avoid confronting uncomfortable truths. And in the first hours of financial collapse, comfortable lies kill fast. When they come, and they will come, asking to borrow supplies, your preparedness better not be common knowledge. Day 2. The power's still on. Water's still flowing from your tap. The internet's still working, mostly. You're thinking, see, the grid's independent from banking. Infrastructure's fine. We'll ride this out. And there you are, taking a hot shower like it's a God-given right, flushing your toilet without a second thought, charging your phone from the wall socket like electrons are guaranteed by the Constitution. Congratulations, you just confused still working with will keep working, which is the cognitive equivalent of assuming your parachute's fine because you're still alive at 10,000 feet. The cascading failure principle. Here's the physics of societal collapse you're ignoring. Modern infrastructure isn't a collection of independent systems, it's an interconnected web where each component depends on at least 3 others to function. Your electricity requires fuel delivery, which requires banking to pay truckers, plant operators who need to buy food with money that works, and maintenance crews who need functional supply chains for replacement parts. Your water system requires chemical treatment supplies, electricity to run pumps, and workers who aren't rioting because their paychecks are worthless numbers. The timeline follows domino mathematics. MIT did a network analysis of critical infrastructure interdependencies in 2019. Their model showed that if financial systems collapse, you've got approximately 48 to 72 hours before secondary systems start failing. Why? Because just-in-time delivery, the logistical miracle that keeps modern society humming, requires constant monetary transactions. Every 18 hours, a truck needs to deliver fuel to a gas station. Every 12 hours, a vendor needs to restock a grocery store. Every 8 hours, workers need to believe their labor has value. When the payment system dies, the entire supply chain develops blood clots within 72 hours and strokes out completely within a week. The fix: infrastructure independence protocols. You've got a 48-hour window to transition from grid dependent to grid independent, and every hour you waste makes the next hour harder. First action: water sovereignty. Right now, not tomorrow, right fucking now, you're filling every container you own with clean water. Bathtubs, sinks, pots, buckets, empty soda bottles, that old fish tank in the garage. Your goal is 1 gallon per person per day for 30 days minimum. Family of 4, that's 120 gallons. Sounds like a lot? It's survival baseline. Half for drinking, half for hygiene and cooking. You're also hitting the store for water purification tablets. Bleach, 8 drops per gallon makes it drinkable. Wait 30 minutes. And if you're smart, a Sawyer mini water filter that can purify 100,000 gallons. Cost? $30. Value in 96 hours. Priceless. But here's the pro move: secondary water sources. You identify every natural water source within walking distance. That creek behind the shopping center, that pond at the public park, the community pool that's about to become a giant reservoir. Map them now. Download offline maps to your phone showing every body of water within 5 miles. Because when your tap runs dry on day 6, you're not going to remember where that stream was that you drove past twice a week for 5 years. Second layer: power independence. You're grabbing flashlights, batteries, and LED lanterns, not candles. You're not trying to burn your house down when EMTs aren't coming. Solar chargers for your devices, power banks, fully charged. If you've got the cash and time, a generator and 20 gallons of gas. But here's the critical part: you're buying gas stabilizer. Gasoline degrades in 30 to 90 days. Stabilizer extends that to 12 to 24 months. You add it now, because in 72 hours, gas stations are either empty or charging $50 per gallon from the guys with guns. Advanced move: kill your power appetite. You identify every non-essential device and unplug it. Your electricity might stay on for weeks if load drops enough. Every TV, computer, air conditioner, and appliance that isn't critical to survival gets shut down. You're running your fridge and freezer, LED lights, and phone chargers. That's it. This extends grid life and makes your generator fuel last 10 times longer if it comes to that. Third backup: sanitation without infrastructure. When sewage systems fail, and they will fail when pumps stop running, your toilet becomes a biological hazard. The fix: bucket toilet system. 5-gallon bucket, heavy-duty garbage bags, kitty litter, or sawdust. Line the bucket, do your business, cover with absorbent material, seal the bag when full, store away from living areas. Gross? Absolutely. Better than dysentery from a backed-up sewer system contaminating your house? You bet your ass. Create redundancy layers. Your primary water source is municipal supply while it lasts. Secondary is your stored water. Tertiary is natural sources with purification. Quaternary is rainwater collection from your gutters. You need 4 deep on every critical system, because Murphy's Law doesn't take days off during collapse scenarios. Pop culture parallel: The Road, both the book and movie. Remember how the father obsessively collected supplies, maintained their cart, and never trusted that anything would stay working? That wasn't paranoia. That was pattern recognition from someone who'd watched infrastructure die. Every time they found a house with water, he didn't celebrate. He filled every container immediately because he knew it wouldn't last. Or look at the real-world example of Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria. The power grid was down for 181 days in some areas, 11 months without consistent electricity. The people who survived best? The ones who stopped depending on the authorities will fix it after day 3 and built their own solutions. Solar panels, rainwater collection, community resource sharing. The ones who waited for FEMA, still waiting, in some cases literally dying while waiting. The 2021 Lebanon economic collapse provides the current playbook. Banking system failed, currency worthless, electricity reduced to 2 hours per day. Within 30 days, people who hadn't prepared were standing in 8-hour lines for bread. The ones who survived? They'd already transitioned to generators, water storage, and community bartering networks. They didn't trust that essential services would stay essential. They were right. The mathematical reality: every piece of infrastructure you depend on requires hundreds of paid workers to maintain. When those workers' paychecks become worthless, they stop maintaining. It's not malice, it's Maslow's hierarchy. They're choosing family survival over civic duty. The cascading failure timeline is predictable. Day 3, fuel delivery stops. Day 5, grocery restocking stops. Day 7, water treatment becomes sporadic. Day 10, electricity starts rolling blackouts. Day 14, sewage systems begin failing. Day 21, you're living in a pre-industrial society with modern population density. That math doesn't work out well for anyone. Your shower right now feels amazing. Enjoy it. Because in 96 hours, you might be bathing from a bucket of creek water you boiled on a camp stove, wondering why you didn't fill the bathtub when you had the chance. When they come, and they will come, demanding to know why your house still has water when theirs doesn't, your independence better not be visible from the street. Day 4, the grocery stores are empty, the ATMs are dark, people are starting to get scared, and you're hearing talk about community meetings and sharing resources, and we're all in this together. Someone's suggesting a neighborhood watch, another person wants to pool supplies, there's talk of collective security and mutual aid, and there you are, nodding along, thinking about the heartwarming disaster movies where communities unite against adversity. You're remembering that time the neighborhood rallied to help Mrs. Johnson after her house fire. You're thinking about potlucks and block parties and the fundamental goodness of people. Congratulations, you just activated the same cognitive bias that got 10,000 people killed in the New Orleans Superdome, and you're about to learn why Lord of the Flies was a documentary, not fiction. The math of betrayal is simple. You've got a family of 4 and 60 days of food stored. Your neighbor has 8 people and 5 days of food. Sharing means your 60 days becomes 12 days for everybody. Your kids starve so their kids can eat. The person who suggests pooling resources isn't suggesting equality. They're suggesting you subsidize their lack of preparation. And when you say no, you become the villain, the hoarder, the selfish bastard who let children starve. Your house becomes a target for redistribution. Group dynamics get worse with scale. Small groups, 3 to 7 people, can maintain cooperation under stress. Medium groups, 8 to 20 people, develop factions and power struggles within 48 hours. Large groups, 20 plus people, collapse into tribal chaos almost immediately. Why? Dunbar's number: humans can maintain stable social relationships with about 150 people maximum, and that's under normal conditions. Under stress, that number drops to about 5 to 15 people you genuinely trust. Everyone else is a threat vector. The fix: tribal mathematics and selective alliance formation. You're not joining the neighborhood collective. You're building a small, vetted survival cell of people who contribute more than they consume, and you're doing it quietly before the community meeting even happens. First action: threat assessment and network mapping. You create a detailed analysis of every household within a 3-block radius. Who has skills? Who has supplies? Who's organized? Who's desperate? Who's dangerous? You're looking for the markers, the guy with NRA stickers and tactical gear, potential ally or potential warlord, the family with 6 kids and no parents, liability, the elderly couple with medical needs, liability unless they've got something valuable to trade, the former Marine 3 doors down who keeps a low profile. That's your first recruitment target. You approach exactly 3 to 5 households with this criteria. 1. Useful skills: medical, mechanical, security, agricultural. 2. Demonstrated preparedness: they've got supplies without you telling them to. 3. Trustworthiness: you've known them for years, not months. 4. Tactical advantage: their house location provides defensive depth or resource access. You do not approach the loudmouth who's organizing the community meeting. You do not approach the person who's already begging for help on day 4. You approach the quiet, competent ones who are thinking the same thing you are. Your pitch is tactical honesty. Things are getting bad. I think they're going to get worse. I've prepared, you've prepared, but alone we're vulnerable. I'm thinking 4 to 6 households, resource pooling, collective security, strict operational security. Nobody outside the cell knows what we have. We defend each other, we share within the group, and we present a unified front to outside threats. You in? That's it. No sales pitch, no begging. You're offering partnership to equals, not charity to dependents. Second layer, operational security protocols. Your cell operates with SEAL team levels of information compartmentalization. The neighborhood doesn't know you're organized. You maintain appearances of individuals struggling. When the community meeting happens, you attend, you listen, you nod sympathetically, but you commit to nothing. You gather intelligence on who's desperate, who's dangerous, and who's organizing. Then you report back to your cell. Perimeter defense with plausible deniability. Your cell's houses become mutually supporting positions. You're not building obvious barricades, that's a target. You're making subtle modifications, reinforced door frames, clear sight lines between houses, establish communication protocols, walkie-talkies, not phones, pre-position emergency supplies at each location. If one house gets hit, the others respond immediately, but from the outside, just looks like normal neighbors. Third backup, the meat shield strategy. Here's the dark part nobody talks about. You let the unprepared neighbors absorb the first wave of violence. When desperate people start raiding houses on day 12, they hit the obvious targets first. The ones complaining loudly about hunger, the ones with no defensive posture, the ones who were too busy trusting the system to prepare. Your cell stays quiet, maintains defensive readiness, and lets the first wave of chaos sort itself out. Brutal? Yes, effective. Ask the Koreans who defended Koreatown during the 1992 LA riots while police abandoned the area. They formed armed perimeter defense, protected their own, and let the mob attack softer targets. They survived because they understood tribal mathematics. Pop culture parallel, The Walking Dead, Season 2, Herschel's Farm. Remember the debate about keeping the barn zombies versus killing them? That was the conflict between old world morality and new world survival. The people who held on to "we're still civilized" thinking, they got their farm overrun and people killed. The ones who adapted to brutal reality, they survived. Rick's evolution from "we don't kill living people" to "we do what we have to do" wasn't villainy, it was adaptation. Or look at the Stanford prison experiment. In just 6 days, ordinary college students with no prior authority gave themselves into brutal guards and submissive prisoners simply because of assigned roles and stress. Now imagine that experiment, but it's your neighborhood, everyone's starving, and there's no professor to call it off. The nice accountant from 2 doors down who coaches Little League. In 10 days, he's organizing raids on hoarding households because his kids are hungry. Human nature doesn't disappear under stress, it reveals itself. Real-world example, the 1992 LA riots. When police withdrew from Korean neighborhoods, 2 things happened. Communities that organized armed defense survived largely intact. Communities that waited for authorities or trusted in social cooperation burned. The Koreans who set up rooftop armed perimeter defense weren't being paranoid, they were reading the room. When the social contract breaks, the only contract that matters is the one enforced with defensive capability. The numbers game. In your neighborhood of 200 houses, maybe 10% prepared adequately. That's 20 households with resources, another 30% prepared minimally, maybe a week of supplies. The remaining 60%? They've got 3 days of food, maximum. On day 5, that's 120 desperate households looking at 50 households with resources. You cannot share your way out of that math. You cannot community organize your way out of resource scarcity when consumption exceeds availability by a factor of 10. The only options are defensive tribalism or become a resource for others to consume. The community meeting on day 6 isn't about cooperation. It's about the unprepared majority voting to confiscate from the prepared minority, dressed up in language about fairness and we're all in this together. Don't fall for it. The moment you reveal you have resources, you volunteered to be the neighborhood welfare system. And when your resources run out, because they will run out if you're feeding 40 people instead of 4, those 36 people who depended on you will turn on you for letting them down. Your neighbors are not your friends in collapse scenarios. They're potential allies, potential threats, or potential resources. Sort them accordingly. When they come, and they will come, demanding community solidarity and sharing for the greater good, your cell better be invisible, your supplies hidden, and your defensive posture ready. Because the ones preaching community cooperation the loudest, they're the ones who prepared the least and need your resources the most. Day 7. You're feeling pretty smart. You pulled out $2,000 in cash during hour 0 while everyone else was refreshing their banking apps. You've been buying supplies, trading with neighbors, using physical currency like the savvy prepper you are. The grocery store's still taking cash. They've got handwritten price lists and calculators. You're ahead of the curve. And there you are, wallet thick with 20s and 100s, feeling like a financial wizard in a digital wasteland. You're thinking, cash is king. Real money, physical currency, can't hack paper bills. Congratulations, you just confused temporary medium of exchange with store of value, and you're about to learn why cash becomes kindling faster than you can say Weimar Republic. The velocity of currency collapse. Here's the economics you're ignoring. Cash only has value because of collective belief in 3 things: scarcity, limited supply, authority, government backing, and utility, ability to exchange for goods. In a banking collapse scenario, all 3 pillars shatter simultaneously and your precious paper becomes worthless in a predictable mathematical cascade. The timeline follows historical patterns from every hyperinflation event in modern history. Week 1, cash premium phase. Physical currency trades at 20 to 50% above its digital value because you can actually transact with it. People are desperate for physical money and will pay premium rates. This is your window. Week 2, price chaos phase. Sellers realize cash is plentiful, but goods are scarce. A gallon of milk that cost $4 on day 1 costs $15 by day 10, $40 by day 14. Not because milk got more valuable, because your dollars got less valuable. Week 3, cash rejection phase. Smart vendors stop accepting cash entirely because by the time they spend it, it's worth 30% less. They want real value, goods, labor, skills, ammunition. The mathematics of hyperinflation are exponential, not linear. When Zimbabwe's currency collapsed in 2008, inflation hit 79.6 billion% month over month at its peak. A loaf of bread cost 1.6 trillion Zimbabwe dollars. The government printed $100 trillion bills that couldn't buy a bus ticket. In Weimar, Germany, 1923, workers were paid twice a day because by evening their morning wages were worthless. They'd rush to spend currency immediately before it lost more value. The velocity of collapse depends on printing capacity and public confidence. In a modern collapse scenario, where banks are already down, you're looking at week 2 before cash becomes decorative paper. Here's the part that gets people killed. Your $2,000 in hundreds feels like security, but it's evaporating in real-time purchasing power. Day 1, that's 60 days of food. Day 7, it's 30 days. Day 14, it's 10 days. Day 21, it's 2 days. Same paper, same numbers printed on it, but the collective hallucination that maintains its value is dying. And you're holding on to it because your brain can't process that the thing that represented wealth for your entire life just became a confidence game with no confidence left. The fix, currency exit strategy, and real value conversion. You've got a narrow window between cash is useful and cash is toilet paper to convert paper into real value. That window is week 1, maybe stretching into early week 2. After that, you're burning money for warmth, literally. First action, strategic conversion timeline. Days 1 to 3, you use cash aggressively to acquire tangible assets. Not stockpiling more food, you already did that. You're buying durable goods with long-term utility, hand tools, seeds, water filtration systems, medical supplies, ammunition if you can find it. Things that don't spoil, don't depreciate, and have universal utility. A box of .22 caliber rounds costs $30 on day 2 and will be worth 300 mils in barter value by day 30. Days 4 to 7, you shift to strategic luxury items: alcohol, tobacco, coffee, chocolate, soap. The items people crave once the immediate survival panic subsides. A bottle of cheap whiskey for $20 today becomes a week's worth of labor from someone with skills you need. A carton of cigarettes for $70 becomes negotiating leverage with the guys running the neighborhood protection racket. You're not buying these because you use them. You're buying them because other people's addictions and desires become your economic leverage. Days 8 to 14, you're dumping remaining cash as fast as possible. By now, smart people are refusing bills or demanding absurd premiums. You take whatever deals you can get. Trade cash for silver if anyone's selling. Buy fuel, buy propane, buy anything tangible. The goal is zero paper currency by day 14 because after that, you're holding worthless promises from a government that can't back them. Second layer, real value identification and stockpiling. In a collapsed economy, value flows to 3 categories. 1. Immediate survival goods, food, water, medicine, shelter. 2. Durable tools, things that help people survive indefinitely. 3. Morale chart comfort items, the psychological necessities people will trade anything for once physical survival is temporarily secured. Your conversion priority? Ammunition and reloading supplies first. Highest trade value, never depreciates, universal demand. Seeds second. In a month, people realize they need to grow food and heirloom seeds become currency. Medical supplies third. Antibiotics, painkillers, first aid equipment become worth their weight in gold. Hand tools fourth. Axes, saws, hammers, nails. Civilization runs on these when power tools die. Alcohol and tobacco. Fifth, human weakness is reliable economics. Pro move, fractional value units. You're not buying full bottles of liquor, you're buying nip bottles and airplane bottles, not cartons of cigarettes, individual packs, or better yet, rolling tobacco and papers for portion control. This gives you flexible transaction sizes. Someone needs minor medical help? That's worth 3 nip bottles and half a pack of cigarettes. Someone wants to trade guard duty shift? 2 full packs and a travel-size soap. You're creating your own currency system with universally desired goods in tradable denominations. Third backup, skills as currency transition. The absolute smartest move is realizing that in 3 weeks, physical goods run out no matter how much you hoarded, but skills never deplete. You spend week 1 learning or improving high-value skills, basic medical, suturing, wound care, setting brakes, mechanical repair, engines, generators, bicycles, food preservation, canning, smoking, fermenting, and critical defensive skills. The person who can fix a generator or suture a wound doesn't need money. They have permanent economic value in their capabilities. Pop culture parallel. The Book of Eli, post-apocalyptic wasteland where water is valuable. But remember what the villain Carnegie hoarded above all? Not food, not weapons, books, knowledge, specifically a Bible, because controlling information and ideology meant controlling people. But even before that level, remember the trading post scene? They weren't using money, they were bartering goods and services. KFC wet naps were currency. Why? Because they had utility in a world where utility equals value. Or look at Fallout 4's cap-based economy. Why are bottle caps currency in a nuclear wasteland? Because they're 1. Difficult to counterfeit, 2. Finite in supply, 3. Portable, 4. Universally recognized. The game literally models what real post-collapse economics look like. Later in the game, you see settlements develop specialized economies. One has purified water, trades at premium. Another has medical supplies, another has ammunition. Same principles apply in real collapse scenarios. Real historical example, Venezuela's ongoing collapse. As the bolivar became worthless, 4 million bolivars to 1 USD at one point, the population shifted to alternative currency systems. They started using 1. US dollars for large transactions, 2. Colombian pesos for medium transactions, 3. Barter for small transactions, 4. Cryptocurrency for those with internet. The physical bolivar notes, people made them into purses and origami art, not metaphorically, literally crafted wallets from stacks of million bolivar notes because the paper had more value than the currency. The 2008 Zimbabwe hyperinflation produced the same pattern. At the peak, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe printed $100 trillion notes. Know what people used them for? Toilet paper. The physical paper was more useful for sanitation than for buying anything. Vendors demanded payment in South African rand, US dollars, or barter goods. The official currency became a joke, a meme, a historical curiosity. People who held onto Zimbabwe dollars, hoping the government would stabilize the currency, lost everything. People who converted to real goods survived. The mathematical inevitability. Your cash is backed by the full faith and credit of a government whose banking system just collapsed. What's that backing worth? Exactly what Venezuelan bolivars and Zimbabwe dollars were worth. Nothing. The paper currency in your wallet right now represents a promise. The United States government will honor this debt. But when the banking system is gone, when electronic transactions are dead, when the Federal Reserve can't coordinate monetary policy, that promise is empty words on fancy paper. The psychological trap is that humans have spent centuries being conditioned to view paper money as wealth. Your brain sees those hundreds and feels secure because for your entire life, those bills could be exchanged for goods and services. Breaking that mental programming requires conscious effort. You have to force yourself to see paper currency for what it is, temporary barter chits that work only as long as everyone agrees they work, and that agreement is dying by the hour. Week 1, cash is a tool. Week 2, cash is a liability. Week 3, cash is trash. Your $2,000 in hundreds needs to be $0 in hundreds and $2,000 worth of real value goods by day 14, or you're going to learn a very expensive lesson about the difference between money and wealth. When they come, and they will come, offering you thousands in cash for a bag of rice and a case of water, you better be smart enough to laugh in their faces, because by then, their thousands might not buy a single can of beans. And you're going to feel like a genius for converting early while they're stuck holding worthless paper promises. Day 10. The neighborhood's getting sketchy. You've heard glass breaking 3 streets over. Someone's house got broken into last night. There's a group of guys walking around that nobody recognizes, testing doors, watching houses. The police? Haven't seen a cruiser in 4 days. They're protecting their own families now, or they're among the guys testing doors. And there you are, loading your Glock 19, checking the mag, feeling that weight in your hand, thinking, I'm ready, I've got protection, nobody's taking my supplies. Maybe you've got an AR-15 in the closet, couple hundred rounds of ammo, spent a few weekends at the range, you know how to shoot, you're dangerous. Congratulations, you just confused owning a weapon with tactical capability, and you're about to learn why the Venn diagram of people with guns and people who survive gunfights has surprisingly little overlap. The reality of asymmetric violence. Here's the tactical truth that Call of Duty didn't teach you. Having a gun doesn't make you safe. It makes you a threat, which means actual dangerous people now have to kill you first. Every military and law enforcement tactical doctrine in existence prioritizes one thing above all else. Identify and neutralize armed resistance immediately. That's you. You're the armed resistance. And the guys who've been in actual gunfights? They know you're the nail that stands up and gets hammered down. The mathematics of violence are brutal and statistical. FBI data on armed home defense shows that in self-defense scenarios, trained law enforcement officers hit their target 20 to 30% of the time under stress. Civilians, 5 to 15% hit rate when adrenaline kicks in. Know what that means? If you fire 10 rounds at an intruder from 15 feet away in your dark hallway, you'll probably hit them once, maybe twice. Now here's the fun part. If they're attacking your house, there's probably 3 to 4 of them, not one. You've got 17 rounds in your Glock. You'll land maybe 3 hits total before you're empty. And if they're experienced criminals, they've been in gunfights before. You haven't. They'll put you down while you're fumbling for your second mag. The tactical principles work against solo defenders. Military doctrine operates on force multiplication, superior numbers, overlapping fields of fire, coordinated movement, communication. You're one person trying to defend multiple entry points, front door, back door, windows, garage, simultaneously. Impossible. While you're covering the front door, they're coming through the back. While you're watching the first floor, they're on the second. You cannot maintain 360-degree security alone. You physically cannot be in multiple places at once. And the moment you sleep, they come then. The fix: integrated defense systems and tactical reality. Your gun is not your defense. It's one component of a defense system that requires intelligence, deterrence, physical barriers, early warning, and backup. In that order, the gun is literally last resort when everything else failed. First action: intelligence and target hardening. You do not want gunfights. You want to not be selected as a target in the first place. This requires thinking like an attacker and making your house less attractive than your neighbors' houses. How? Defensive landscaping. Trim bushes near windows so there's no cover for approach. Reinforce doors with 3-inch screws into door frames. Your standard half-inch screws pull out with 1 kick. 3-inch screws require 15 kicks and create noise. Windows get security film. $50 worth of 3M film makes windows take 30 plus impacts to breach instead of 1 rock. You're not making your house impenetrable. You're making it annoying enough that they hit the easier target next door. Layer 2, early warning systems. You need to know they're coming before they reach your door. Motion-activated lights on all approaches, but not the obvious kind that scream security-conscious household with resources. Subtle perimeter indicators, string with cans across yard approaches, gravel in specific patterns that crunch loudly when walked on, even wind chimes positioned to make noise when disturbed. Pro move, game cameras, trail cams, covering approaches, running on batteries, recording to SD cards. When that group of strangers walks through your yard at 2 a.m. casing houses, you've got their faces and you know their pattern. Inside the house, home defense firearms doctrine. Your Glock is not your primary home defense weapon, it's backup. Primary is a shotgun, 12 or 20 gauge, loaded with 0.0 buckshot. Why? Shotguns at home defense distances, 5 to 25 feet, don't require precision aim. Point in general direction, pull trigger, 9 to 12 pellets spread in a pattern roughly the size of a fist. Much harder to miss. Also, the sound of a shotgun racking is universal language for bad decision, turnaround, psychological deterrence before shots fired, weapon placement, strategic positioning in every defensible room. Not one gun in the master bedroom. You've got a shotgun in the master bedroom, a handgun in the kitchen, another shotgun in the living room, all in quick access safes if you've got kids. Why? Because if they breach while you're making dinner, you're not running upstairs to your bedroom safe. You're accessing the weapon closest to your current position and falling back to a prepared defensive position. Third backup, fields of fire and fatal funnels. You've walked through your house thinking like an attacker and like a defender. You identify every entry point and every fatal funnel, hallways, doorways, stairways, where attackers must pass through narrow space to reach you. These are your kill zones. You know exactly where you'll position if you hear entry. You've pre-planned your defensive position, your cover, not concealment, actual cover that stops bullets, your sight lines, your escape routes. You've rehearsed this mentally 50 times, so when adrenaline hits, you're operating on muscle memory and pre-planned tactics, not panic decisions. Here's the critical part: coordinated defense with your survival cell. Remember those 3 to 5 households you allied with in Section 4? This is where they become force multipliers. Your houses are mutually supporting positions. You've established communication protocols, walkie-talkies on a preset channel, emergency codes. When your perimeter alarm triggers at 2 a.m., you're not defending alone. You radio the cell, they respond with armed support within 60 seconds. Now the attackers aren't facing one defender with a gun, they're facing coordinated crossfire from multiple positions. That math changes real quick. Advanced defense, defensive positions and cover hardening. Inside your house, you've created actual cover, not just concealment. Cover stops bullets, concealment just hides you. Your safe room has reinforced door, deadbolts, books or sandbags stacked against walls, paper and sand stop bullets real well, weapons positioned, communication equipment, supplies for 24-hour lockdown if needed. If they breach your outer defenses, you fall back to this position and hold until your cell responds, or the attackers decide you're too much trouble and leave. Pop culture parallel, John Wick. Everyone remembers the stylish gunfights, but notice what actually keeps John alive? Intelligence networks. He knows who's coming before they arrive. Safe houses with pre-positioned weapons, backup from allies, the ability to disappear and reposition. When he's trapped and surrounded, what does he do? He doesn't hero stand his ground, he breaks contact, escapes, and engages on terms that favor him. That's actual tactics, not suicide by courage. Or look at Sicario, the border crossing scene. Professional operators don't want fair gunfights, they want overwhelming advantage. Superior numbers, superior position, superior intelligence, and engagement only when they control all variables. When they hit the cartel convoy, it's not a shootout, it's an execution because they stacked every advantage before pulling triggers. Real-world example, the 1992 LA riots, rooftop Koreans. Everyone focuses on they had guns, but miss the actual tactical genius. They positioned on rooftops, height advantage, superior fields of fire, difficult to attack. They operated in coordinated groups, overlapping coverage, communication, shift rotations, so someone was always alert. They presented visible armed deterrence. Attackers saw the defensive posture and chose softer targets. They engaged only when absolutely necessary to deter, firing warning shots, not proactively attacking. They understood the gun was part of an integrated defense system, not the system itself. The brutal statistics. In a neighborhood conflict scenario, the lone armed homeowner has approximately 15% survival rate over 30 days. They'll eventually get flanked, overwhelmed by numbers, or killed while sleeping. The coordinated cell of 4 to 6 households with integrated defense systems, 70% survival rate because they've got overlapping security, shift rotations for watch duty, mutual support, and deterrent posture that makes them non-viable targets. Your Glock holds 17 rounds. You've got, 2 extra magazines? So 51 rounds total. That's 3 engagements, maybe 4 if you're lucky, and they run after the first exchange. After that, you're out of ammunition and you're in a hand-to-hand fight with guys who've been in prison and know how to hurt people. This math doesn't work in your favor. Here's what actually keeps you alive. Not being selected as a target, intelligence and hardening. Deterrence through visible defensive capability, they know you're organized and armed. Early warning so you're never surprised, perimeter sensors and vigilance. Coordinated response from your cell, force multiplication. And finally, if all else fails, the willingness to use violence decisively, not warning shots, not trying to wound, center mass, multiple rounds, stop the threat permanently. The gun culture fantasy is that you're Rambo, one man against the horde, and your marksmanship and courage carry the day. The tactical reality is that solo operators die fast, coordinated groups survive, and the best gunfight is the one that never happens because you weren't worth attacking in the first place. When they come, and they will come, testing doors in your neighborhood, your gun better be part of a system that includes intelligence, deterrence, physical barriers, early warning, and coordinated backup. Because if your entire security plan is, I've got a gun, you're not a hard target, you're a loot drop with extra steps. And the guys who've actually been in gunfights, they're counting on you to think that gun makes you invincible. It makes their job easier.